Tell me what you read, and then I can tell what you are. Hello everyone! In the previous part, we've talked about the different fiction structures resulted from different culture. And in this part, we'll further our discussion by trying to find out what are the differences in Chinese and Western fiction contents. When the topic of classic Chinese fiction comes up, most people will name the four classics as Journey to the West, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Outlaws of the Marsh, A Dream of Red Mansion. Fiction as a literary genre in China was conceived during the period of Han Wei and matured in the Tang Dynasty. The content of Chinese fiction falls roughly in three categories. The first is supernatural fiction, which includes stories about fairies, immortals, ghosts, and monsters, such as 搜神记, tales of marvels and records of spirits. Those stories reflect the religious consciousness of the ancient people and are deeply related to witchcraft, Taoism, and Buddhism. As time passed, the elements of witchcraft and religion gradually faded, but the fragments of myth and legends continued to haunt the people's imagination and influence the tales of the supernatural in the coming ages. The classic Journey to the West is in fact the representative of this category. Besides the existence of ghosts, ancient Chinese believed that everything in the world could turn into a spirit and take on a human form as long as it had existed long enough and absorbed enough essence from the universe. The tales of the supernatural also contain stories of various spirits, such as those of birds, beasts, flowers, grass, and trees. Among them, the most common protagonist is the fox spirit. From mythology to popular fiction, the fox descends from being an auspicious animal into a spirit, and then into a female demon that deprives men of vitality. Later on, Pu Songling collected such supernatural stories mainly about spirits into Liao Zai Zi Yi, Strange Tales from a Lonely Studio. This type of fiction about supernatural and spirits reveals that ancient Chinese people put nature in an awesome state and had a simple belief that all things have a soul. The second type covers unofficial historical records mixed with some incredible contents, which is called historical romance. With various styles, they are mostly exaggerated accounts of historical events, and authors chose a narrative style to present historical scenes, using their imaginations to describe the scenes in details. For example, 史记, records of the grand history, has some parts read more like fiction than history, such as biography of assassins, 刺客列传, is quite story-like. It has vivid descriptions on 荆轲、专诸、列阵 assassination attempts in Chinese Warring States period. Their loyalty to friends and their courage to accomplish mission impossible fostered the later development of wuxia fiction, which is quite unique in China. Our worship for those heroes is closely related to our traditional ethics, loyalty, and righteousness. These historical romances win a lot of readers and are quite popular in China for a long time. Romance of Three Kingdoms and Outlaws of the Marsh are among the most famous of this category. The third type includes stories of the common people's life at a certain time, such as stories to enlighten the world, stories to warn the world, written by Feng Mengnong in Ming Dynasty. People read these stories and gain some moral lessons. For example, 杜十娘入城百宝箱 condemned the man who betrayed his love and sang highly of the beautiful lady who remained faithful to her love, even at the expense of her precious life. There are no supernatural spirits or history accounts in those stories. And what attracts readers is a vivid and detailed description of common people's common life. Gold Vase Plum and Dream of Red Mansion are the masterpieces of this type. Compared with Chinese fiction, Western fiction has its unique features. There are lots of fiction types in the West, and 3 of them stood out. The first type is fantasy fiction. One of the most famous is the trilogy of Rings of Lord. Tolkien created a fantastic world of Middle-earth in this fantasy work. The gist of this story is that Frodo, a hobbit, inherited the magic ring from Bilbo, another hobbit. The magic ring is an evil key to power, and safe in hobbit hands since hobbits are small, brave, ingenious, and peace-loving creatures, content with simple natural comforts. But the ring would be the means of tyranny and total corruption if in the hands of vain, self-centered, and possessive beings. The evil lord covets the ring in order to conquer the whole of Middle-earth and enslave its creatures. Only one way to stop him, that is to throw the ring away. The long fiction mainly depicts the hardships that Frodo and 3 other hobbits experienced on their way to accomplish this task. In Rings of Lord, Tolkien created a grand world of imagination which is independent of the real world. By comparison, Chinese fantasy novels are more realistic with more concrete characters which can be found in real life. Another keyword to understand Western fiction is adventure. For example, we are quite familiar with Adventure of Robinson Crusoe. It started by a shipwreck. Crusoe miraculously survived on an island, built his house, grew rice and wheat, domesticated goats. Readers are amazed to see how he made a boat but failed to get it into water, how he found the footprint of a man and fought with the cannibals to rescue a savage, Friday. His adventure ended when an English ship arrived and rescued him. It's not only a masterpiece of storytelling, but also an interpretation of Western adventure-loving nature, which rooted from the Greek time in the Epic of Odysseus. Adventure story is one of the most popular types in Western fiction. From Robinson Crusoe to Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer, from Stevenson's Treasure Land to Pike's Day with a tiger in a boat. Western fiction never lacks the element of taking adventures. Unlike Chinese mainly domestic stories, Western thriving adventurous fictions reflect their risk-taking spirit in its culture. Since Greek myth and the Bible are the two well-acknowledged sources of Western literature, no wonder religion plays a certain role in Western fiction. When John Bunyan wrote his masterpiece, The Pilgrim's Progress, what in his mind is a pilgrimage of a human soul in search of salvation. The story takes the form of a dream in which Christian, the central character, travels from the city of destruction to the celestial city. The doubts and terrors that troubled Christian are indeed the actual uncertainties felt by all Christians. For example, Dostoevsky ponders on the existence of God in his novel Brothers Karamazov. To seek comfort in the belief of God has always been one of the favorite subjects in Western literature. By comparison, Chinese fiction, generally speaking, lacks the religious element, which is common in Western fiction because in Chinese culture, religion never gains the status as important as in Western world. Chinese fiction is more earthbound, and Confucianism is more like a practical philosophy rather than a religion, which can explain why Chinese stories mainly focus on the world instead of the other world. Now, let's review this part by 3 questions. First, what are the 3 main types of Chinese fiction? The first type is about supernatural. Flowers, trees, animals, those natural things may gain magical powers in such stories. The second type is historical romances which intermingle history accounts with imagination. The third type is the description of common people's common life. 2. What are the main types of Western fiction? Fantasy fiction is quite popular in the West. A fantastic world is created out of imagination and there's little trace of the real life. Adventure fiction is another favorite subject in the Western fiction. Readers love to experience those incredible adventures with the characters in the story. The third type is a fiction about religion, since belief has become an inseparable part in the Westerner's life. Third question: what makes the differences between Chinese and Western fiction in terms of contents? Western culture is extroverted and is keen on having adventures as well as exploring the world unknown. Besides, the influence of Christianity can explain the religious flavor in Western fiction. By contrast, Chinese culture is introverted and is more concerned about the present life other than the other world. Religion has never gained the same crucial status as the Western world.